Welcome to another edition of Against the Current, coming to you from the Skyline Club atop the Old Republic in downtown Chicago. I'm Dan Proft, co-host of Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, weekdays 5 to 9 a.m. And my guest on this edition is documentarian Eli Steele, whose movie, How Jack Became Black, is being screened in Chicago and is receiving rave reviews, I should say, around the country. Eli Steele, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the basis for the documentary. What was the impetus to do the film?
Well, probably two of them. First, I was born to a black father and a Jewish mother, and I grew up in the Bay Area, and I always kind of wondered why I was born into this faith and why I was kind of different from other people. And I also wondered why every time I said I'm black and Jewish, that was a problem for other people. Why was that even an issue? It's just because when you are multiracial, you come from that family, it's the most natural thing that you can live. And why would other people have a problem with that? And then for my two children who were born in 2008 and 2010, to even a more complex racial faith, I kind of go, oh wow, okay, for me, I could say black and Jewish. That's easy, kind of rolls off your tongue.
Sammy Davis said it, you can say it.
Yeah,
right?
Or Lenny Kravitz or something.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of references, but now you're going into another dimension. Black, Jewish, and the mother from Mexico, the family from Mexico. The mother first born in America, actually the first member of the family born in America. So the ties to Mexico are very strong. It's not some abstract thing, and the ties to the black side, the Jewish side are strong. So how you make sense of that, and what was bothering me was that I had to stand that identity politics was actually growing stronger. It was doubling down. It was wanting to put people into boxes even more. And that seemed like a contradiction because we're becoming more and more multiracial in identity politics and pushing us backwards into the boxes. And why? And I got my first, and that was like a suspicion. But when I went to enroll my kid in the elementary school, a public elementary school, it's that primary race. You have to pick one, or he cannot come in.
You have to check a box.
Yeah, you have to, and I've never seen that before. Why?
And that was now when you said, like, well, I've got this problem. My kids are black, Jewish, Mexican, white, etc. So they don't fit into a box. They didn't say, oh, well, just put other or just write in the blank, all of them. You have to pick one, and this became sort of a problem in your kind of pursuit of an explanation as to why you had to do this.
Exactly, and I was still expecting to see the multiracial bar or check all the apply, like you mentioned, and this is in Los Angeles. So this is not
pretty multiracial community.
Exactly, and if you're looking Jack and June's life, it's Martin Luther King's dream in a way. I'm just sit there and they play handball. And they have a friend from Iran, a friend from India, black. And they're all just having fun. And so it's sort of a real experience. But no, we got to put Jack into a box. We got to put June into a box. Now, the other thing with the multiracial boxes to check all they apply, the federal government, it was in the Wall Street Journal last Thursday, requires that they be put back into the minority box. So in other words, the federal government has actually revived or never really let go of the one-drop rule, the one-drop of black blood rule. So Jack would be in the black box no matter what.
And so this is sort of
even I check the multiracial box,
they'd still default back to the black.
So all these people are feeling, oh, I'm checking the multiracial box, I'm checking all they apply. But no, you're not. Behind the scenes, you think you are, but when you count, no.
Because they're making the decision in terms of the categorization.
The government is, yeah.
And so the thing that's interesting about your family, for those who don't know, Shelby Steele, your father, who's a famous intellect and scholar and author, content of Our Character and White Guilt, and his most recent book, Shame.
Shame, yeah.
It's interesting because, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but so your father marries a white woman that he met at
Jewish woman.
Jewish woman. Excuse me. Okay,
Yeah,
Jewish woman.
yeah, back then
No,
it's like-
right. Yeah, right. Exactly. I get in trouble. They met at Cole College, right?
Yeah, in
They met
Cole
as
College,
undergrads.
yeah.
So then he was going to take a position on the faculty at University of Utah. Was that right? But he didn't like how they were treated in Utah, so he ends up at San Jose State. So I mean, in terms of like this is somebody who came up in college in the 60s and the height of the civil rights movement. He's part of it. He knows what institutional racism looks like. He experiences it when he marries a Jewish woman as he's starting his academic career. So he's got this whole set of experiences.
Yes.
You come up and you're applying to UCLA and you're asked to check a box and you choose not to check the box because you don't want to play that game. And now you fast forward 50 years from
Almost 20 years, yeah.
yeah, 50 years from your dad and 20 years,
yes.
20 years from you. This whole kind of continuum is interesting to me. Your family, your dad's experience versus your experience versus your kids' experiences, and it's almost like we're making progress, and then we reverse to go back to the 60s and segregation. This time it's more self-segregation than segregation by law, but you end up in some of the same places, don't you?
Yes. People forget that the whole point of the civil rights movement, especially my grandmother and my grandfather, one of the primary objectives was to remove the black and the white bar.
Right.
So that's what they were really trying to do, because those boxes kept them, in chains, basically, and defined their lives. I mean, my grandfather was probably one of the most intelligent men, but he was a truck driver, and he worked for a white family, and this is on the south side of Chicago. So he never was able to, live life to his fullest, and but he raised, obviously very intelligent children, and so that's the proof in the pudding. But, they wanted to get rid of the boxing because it defined their life. And we've brought the boxes back in the name of proving discrimination, which is a very understandable thing because you're coming out of one of the worst racial orders, white supremacy. So obviously, a lot of people didn't argue with that. But the problem is not the boxes themselves, because they're just on a piece of paper. It's the power behind the bar. And so whatever that power decides that the box can be, that's where it becomes. So that's why the powers are more corrupted today. So that's why we find ourselves in this really absurd position where Jack and June represent everything that we were looking for in the civil rights movement. I mean, they are the dream of diversity. We've been trying to engineer as a society.
But it seems, so the boxes become a way to divide. So they're not, the boxes are innocently construed by most people, but there's something very pernicious about it. Your father talks about modern liberalism being the new racism. You call identity politics the new racial order. So develop what you mean by that, or what you think, what your father is talking about when he says modern liberalism is the new racism.
Yes, what he really means is that all the race policies are ultimately about the white liberal, achieving, or like what we call today, virtues dignity.
Yeah.
I'm implementing all these programs. I'm doing good by doing all of this, but the problem is at the end, what's the result? And a lot of these policies don't result in uplift. And so that's really what it is. Like, for example, and a lot of people have a hard time understanding that I was in Northwood University in Michigan, and the black student came up and asked me about about affirmative action, about racial preference. So I explained to her, I said, well, we were supposed to do affirmative action, which was supposed to be institutional reform. Like, we were supposed to go in, really help the community. That was the original purpose of it. If you listen to Lyndon B. Johnson, he talks about how we can't take people who are hobbled by the shame and bring them to the starting line.
Right.
But then after that, he states all of us must have the ability to walk through the gate. So he was aware that we really have to go into the community, the impoverished community, and give them the ability. We betrayed all of that with racial preference. We said, oh, that should be too hard to do. It takes too much time. I mean, we've got to go in, where the money come from. The teachers, we need our redemption now.
Well, I mean, and it seems that we just can repeat this cycle in different forms with each successive generation. I mean, Frederick Douglass talked about not wanting a government that would confer benefits and impose responsibilities, because that can go a lot of different ways, depending on who's in power. That is, it's the old fearful servant and dangerous master.
And the problem, I think, with a lot of people is they should just see black people as human beings. I mean, they really just don't. They see them as the ways to redeem them their own self. And, and when you do that, I mean, I don't know if these people, I mean, nobody can know if it was going through their mind, but when you made it about college admission and you use racial preference, then you basically reduce people to their skin color. Just a few years after my grandparents were trying to break away from those boxes. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, we need this many black students, and we need to hit this number. Then we're good people. If you fall short of that number, we're doing something wrong. We need to fire people. We need to. So our whole conversation for almost 20, 30 years, even to this day, I have been around that, around skin color, rather than how many issues. I wish it's so absurd to me, because why would we put value on how many black students get into a college, as opposed to how many graduate from college?
Right.
Right. That number is completely worthless. But they focus on that number because that's what they have control over.
You mentioned being on a college campus in Michigan. During your stop in Chicago, you hit the campus of DePaul to do a screening of your documentary. How are you received on college campuses generally, as college campuses, like American society more generally, become more and more multiracial? Are you seeing light bulbs go on with the kids in college as you speak with them? Or is there so much of this identity politics obsession and brainwashing that there's a lot of granite you have to penetrate?
Yes, should be on the bright side. I've actually gotten a very good response at probably a couple of batches that we are kind of removed from. We've had so many years since the 1960s that we can kind of look back and say, oh, okay, that might not be the right thing. There's also a lot of people who are now becoming aware that diversity, all these practices to achieve diversity, have not worked. For example, I was working on a movie project, and I had to fill out the paperwork for the Screen Actors Guild, which is the union. And we had probably maybe 3 or 4 black actors on it. And the guy said to me, you only need one. So this grip, it's about the grip. We're not trying to hit this number. But so I think more people are becoming. You're
overdoing it with 3 black actors.
I'm too good of a person.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, that was just like the absurdity of that whole situation, and the people are becoming aware of that. They also, in some other parts of Hollywood, if you are multiracial, and let's say you're half Hispanic and half black, the Hispanic group will claim you as half, and the black will claim you as half. So now we got people who
you got to distribute across as many categories as you can get, right?
So why we? But that's like the 3/5.
Yeah, right.
I mean, so it's just really. If you talk to that person, you get a full human being, but they want the number, and so we are in just this cycle, and so I think a lot of people are now aware of that. I've shown this film to people. They may not agree with it. I didn't think we would agree with it. And they come away with saying, oh, thank you. One woman in Pennsylvania showed me her library, and she said, she's actually, I think she was born in India, her husband from India too. They have 1 child from India, and they adopted 2 white children. So obviously that's a little bit of a reverse than we're used to. Mm-hmm. And she was wondering, well, how do I teach them all their culture, all of that. And then when she started the documentary, she realized, no, wait a minute, I need to back off. Let them live their life. They will figure it out. Let them be individuals. Guide them in certain direction. But I don't need to force it upon them. Just let them develop as human beings, and they find their way. And so the film gave her that liberation to move away from this. No, the child must speak the language. Must, you know.
So your two kids, they're fourth grade and second grade, right?
Yeah, Jack and June.
Jack and June.
Yeah, June.
And so, so how do they understand the film, or how do they understand their multiracial identity? What are the kind of conversations you have with them?
Right now, they are still young. Jack has watched the documentary. June, it's kind of funny. She likes to watch the documentary, and she has one hand for Jack and one hand for June. And every time she popped up on the screen, one.
Right, just counting the number of appearances. Yeah, sure.
So she's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But the way they understand is what's going on are through family stories. And my ex-wife and I, we do a really good job of teaching them. She even tell them stories about my side of the family. I'll tell stories about her side of the family, just making it all integrated. And because that's what they are. They are, that's their foundation, are the amazing stories. I mean, you got, the grandfather who come from one of the original Mormon family. So, and they have the artifact, they have the fur coat from the trip over, and you go to the grandmother's village in Mexico. You play in the river, just it's unchanged from when you was a child, and you ride the horses bareback. So they get all of that. My parent, the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and then my father. So then you got the crazy Uncle Buddy, who's a stunt guy, but come from Texas, come from another whole black experience. I mean, it's just...
So they get the full gamut.
And so that's the only way anybody, you can't make that political. And that's what our society is trying to do, is take all these identities and put a political value on them.
Well, and that's particularly the case in education, in K through 12 education. It's not just the college campus. As Andrew Sullivan wrote recently, we all live on a college campus now in this country to some extent.
Yeah.
And so what's the experience like in school, and how worried are you about the school that adheres to this rigid orthodoxy of checking a box, for lack of a better description, poisoning their minds with the identity politics that you're arguing against?
You have to worry about it, because it's just everywhere, and fortunately it has not reached the classroom in LA yet. And that's why I became involved with these parents in Chicago, and because they really identify with the film, but they have these practices happening in high school, in New Trier, in other places, and then they have it in junior high now. In fact, there was in Nichols, junior high in Everton had they segregated the faculty by race.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, well, Gaily Royce now are actually segregated.
I mean, they're even
faculty by race, which is the opposite.
They're even doing it at Comic-Con. I mean, you have Comic-Con breakout sessions where no straight white males are allowed, and I thought the whole point of Comic-Con was for dorks to go meet an actual live girl and see if they can interact with them. So I mean, it's so when this, you're never going to interact. I mean, if you can't,
No,
but it's this like it's become impossible to parody.
Yeah. I mean, you can't write a movie about it. You can't even do like a naked gown.
Yeah, right. You can't spoof it, right?
No, so so that's why they were, in a way, it could be a positive thing, because you're now pushing identity politics. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, the racial order, where you organize people by race.
And do you think, I mean, and you sort of highlight this in your film by interviewing other multiracial individuals, young people in particular, and you think as our society continues to get more multiracial, with multiracial couples and families, that there will be this pushback against identity politics, or do you see it trending like where that's just going to encourage more of embracing of identity politics and the kind of whole solidarity and marginality. And so now, not only am I oppressed and a victim because I'm black, but I'm double and triple oppressed because I'm black, Mexican, and Jewish.
Yeah, which you probably can't.
Well, but I mean,
Yeah,
black, Mexican, and pick another, and lesbian or something, right? I mean, it's like all this intersectionality stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't do that because you lose your humanity. I mean, you become a bot, literally. I mean, I'm looking in college professors, and you'd be like, I can't even read the description because it's queer, Latin, with the S at the end.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it
you can't
goes
keep
on
up.
and on
Yeah.
and on, and it's like, I want to know what you do, what you write, how am I going to learn from you? I don't care where you are, I want to know what you do, and so that's a big reason why I made this documentary, because it's like, okay, what kind of world are my kids going to grow up in?
Did you get this from the conversations you had with the administrators and the educrats in the LA school system? Did you get a sense from any of them that they either, because of questions that perhaps you asked that they had never been asked before, they started to reconsider their own position and the way the school system operates, or that they're in on the joke, or they're true believers of this identity politics? What's the sense of it?
I think a lot of it, I don't know if they're true believer in the active stand. I think they're true believer in that's all they know.
Yeah.
And the lure of identity politics is that we're going to lead you to racial justice. We're going to lead you to a better America. Though it's a very attractive, beautiful ideology.
Mm-hmm.
But the machine are race based. The machine is organizing people by race based, and people don't quite understand that. And a lot of it is because they've chosen to believe that if there's any difference between racial groups, it's because of racism. And then when racism becomes the only explanation, you leave out the larger human spectrum, and that's what's happening with identity politics. We're taking people literally, compressing the full humanity into this very narrow distance. And so that's why we can say racism is the problem of why we have disparity between the two racial groups. That's what happened in Nickel, in Everson. They had, I think it's like 30% of the black students were really at grade level. 87% of the white students were really at grade level. It must be racism, must be institutional racism. So therefore, we've got to bring in all these programs that will address this. Racial equity program, intersectionality. We've got to now segregate the faculty, because obviously the white faculty must be doing something. And so we've made everything racial. Now the students are being affected by that. They're going to be told what the color of the skin is and the value associated with that. And I mean, I know how easy it would be for me to go to jail right now if I wanted to, and they just sit down. You're white. Your skin is white. You tan pretty good, but your skin is white. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter Mexico, all of that doesn't matter. In America, we live under white supremacy, so you are white. Therefore, you are responsible for all that carnage behind you. You must now live your life. Not only your white privilege, you must live your life trying to redeem that.
Well, that's what your father writes about, the culture of deference. And the whole thing is your entire life, if you're not part of a designated, marginalized class, your whole life is supposed to be an apology.
Exactly. So I could do that to jail. But what would that do? Right now he's 9. So the kids in Nichols are 11, 12. So when you stop a kid like that and you make him look backwards at this history that he can't even understand, and make him responsible for that, you are replacing that American dream with this racial politics.
But I mean, so in some respects, maybe there's a note of optimism because we're becoming more multiracial. In other respects, this culture of deference, this solidarity and marginality, this kind of bigot baiting culture, it's getting worse. And story out recently, Delaware, where grade school kids are, there's an initiative, there's a proposition to allow grade school kids to choose their race and choose their gender. And
without the parent or
without the parent, the way that it's described in great kind of Orwellian tone is, we're not prohibiting the parent from participating, but if the school believes that the parent isn't being properly supportive of their grade school child's decision on what gender and what race they are, then the school can come in and override the parent's viewpoint on the topic. So I mean, the parent
the state have more power than the
that's
parent.
right. Yeah, the parent is being pushed to the side because they're really our kids, and they're going to be sacrificed on the pyre of identity politics, and we'll happily roll over the parents if we need to.
Exactly.
And so now it's gone from race to gender as well, because of course that's what's happened on college campuses, and it filters down and filters up.
Yes, yeah. And again, I mean, the young mind is unmalleable. I mean, I could tell Jack. I mean, I'm just using him as an example, because that's why I take a very strong responsibility in raising him to be the strongest individual he can be, because that's why identity politics behave that thing with white supremacy. Under white supremacy, the whole point of it was to give you that boy when he was like 5 or 6 in school and say, hey, you're a black boy. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you the inferior books. We're going to give you all bad t-shirts. We're going to do all of this. Because you'd be lucky if you get a job as a janitor. You'd never be able to join the union. You'd never be able to do any of that because you're black. That's what white supremacy was doing. It was trying to make that boy know that he was black and accept his faith. And of course, thankfully, a lot of blacks rejected that and worked within their space. My grandfather did that. Even though he never internalized blackness, because to do that should be a really not forgiven, but should be a victim of white supremacy, because we're talking about a huge pressure that was backed by force. It was not something. It's not like today where we should protest. No, it was more like, no, you get back in the line. We'll do the whip or what we have to do. And he was strong enough to reject that. In fact, after the civil rights movement in the early 70s, and my father got caught up in the black power thing. He started talking about black power, this, black this. And I don't know if he wrote about this, maybe he did.
Yeah.
But my grandfather said to him, what is black? What is this black that you're talking about? And that really tells you a lot about his, the psychology of his mind. He was not black. He was an American. He was actually a better American than the white supremacist, because he was fighting for the value that they were betraying. They were not living up to the Constitution. He was fighting for that. He was actually making America a better country. And so for my father, he started talking about blackness. Of course, that's very understandable, because blackness had been degraded.
Yeah.
But he was like, oh, that's another trap.
Right, because what ultimately happens is the pendulum swings all the way to the other side of absurdity, where you're holding somebody down by law because of their skin color, to now you're conferring status or benefits because of their skin color, right? And so I mean, these are two sides of the same coin, aren't they?
Yes, right. And I think I brought up the Cornell story in Cornell University, where you had these black American students protesting that too many African students were getting in, because affirmative action is supposed to be about helping the poor black American. And then, people wrote, at least they wrote an op-ed, they said, whoa, we're all in the same fight, people of color are all in the same fight against white supremacy. We told the black American, get in line. We're all the same color, and these kids, even though they embrace the identity politics in a way, they didn't go far enough. And so they didn't understand it literally means the skin color. I mean, that's what happened to me at the white privilege conference. That you're a white guy.
Yeah, right. It's right, and it's been interesting too because when you have these inflection points, a police-involved shooting like Trayvon Martin, well, that wasn't police involved, but the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case in Florida, which you went down to investigate. The Laquan McDonald police-involved shooting in Chicago. Yeah, this. Now we finally have to have the conversation about race. Seems to me that's all we talk about.
Yeah.
We're not having a conversation about race. We've been having a conversation about race since this country's founding, and it's been intermittently productive, but mostly not, because it ultimately devolves down into this conferring of benefits and responsibilities, not based on performance, but based on the favored skin color, whether by law or by culture. And so, how do you see us breaking out of this trap? I assume it's not going to be by important conversations about race with our barista at Starbucks.
I think the answer really is for, that's why I always joke, I think I always did, my father was a black militant in his youth. I would argue that he's a black militant today, or militant. I mean, he's arguing for empowerment for Style. He's saying you cannot rely on the white people. And I think, in Chicago, we've had, I don't know how many decades of democratic rule or promises. And, I have a lot of friends from Chicago and LA, and they all got out. Some of them from the community garden. Mm-hmm. I said, well, how did you get out? Why did you get out? And they said, I wanted to work in Hollywood. I came here, I had nothing, just a backpack. I had a friend that crashed on the couch. My brother-in-law came from Port Arthur, Texas, wanting to be a stunt guy. Crashed on the couch with some guy for 6 months. Now he's in Pirates of the Caribbean. He's in all these top movies. That's what you have to do. So, the answer really is the individual. People really don't want to believe that. But in this day and age, we are becoming more and more crazy as a country.
What was your experience? Just kind of, and some of it is memorialized in your documentary, but your experience going down to some of these hot spots where a racially charged incident had happened, and talking to people and trying to kind of get to some, kind of point of commonality in the discussions about whether it was the Trayvon Martin case or others, Ferguson.
Yeah, Trayvon Martin case is a very good example. What I started down there was not really on the media. You started town, Stanford, it was very diverse. Even in the rich neighborhood, it was black family, white family, Asian family. You had a lot of poverty in that area, but it was far more middle class. It was a beautiful town. People were tired of it. People were tired of the media. They were tired of the lies. They were tired of the economic boycott. And, a lot of the people were wanting a trial. They favored the trial, but they did not like the pressure coming into the town and running their job. Because you should work in the bookstore in that town and make a nice living. But when you come in there and run an economic boycott, and so, but people in that town were nothing like what was on the media. A lot of the people were outsiders. In the documentary, we had the Revolutionary Communist Party that came from New York.
Right.
When I got there, I was told, all these rules, there could be, thousands of people. There was nobody there. I was the only one that showed up. And I felt like a little bit...
Al Sharpton had already left. Al Sharpton had already left.
No. Well, this was on the first day of the trial.
Yeah.
But nobody, he was gone, but nobody showed up, and I felt like a fool. I thought that I raised my money, but that was the story, that nobody showed up. And then the Revolutionary Communist Party showed up maybe 2 hours later, and it was very interesting because they showed up. They were interviewed by every station, even I got my turn with them. And I asked them, how long will you be here? They said, as long as it's a trial, we're going to hang out here. They were gone in about 2 hours.
Right. It's just for the press pop.
Yeah. And so that's where you really see the power in the media and how important it is to show up. if you want to offer a counter narrative, although you might, if you had another point that was not like the Revolutionary Communist Party, you might be shut out. But it's really important to show up.
Well, and so one of the things, so just my own experience in this, and it's anecdotal, so this isn't necessarily what's happening in the culture writ large, but I ask on my radio program about this too, as we've talked about some of these cases too. It's like, in my everyday life, I have never had an incident involving race. I've never had a disagreement. I mean, unless we're debating a public policy at a forum or something, but interpersonally going to the coffee shop or going to the gym or going anywhere, I've never had a problem with somebody because of their race. They've never had a problem with me because of my race. When I go get my salad at Whole Foods, I don't get involved in some kind of racial incident. So it seems to me that most people in their everyday lives, at least in 21st century America, don't experience anything like the hysteria they see on TV when something admittedly terrible happens, as we're talking about in these cases like Ferguson or Trayvon Martin or Laquan McDonald or others. But it's just so not representative of the lives most Americans are leading or what they're thinking about. I'm not thinking about how to keep somebody else down, and I don't think most people, minorities, are trying to get one over on me either. I mean, these are just like not thoughts that enter people's minds, not enter their daily interactions, but it seems totally manufactured and almost to the point of incitement by parties that have an interest in keeping racial discord alive and well.
Absolutely. I mean, I interviewed Peggy McIntosh at the White Privilege Conference, and she's like the grandmother of white privilege. She has a job at Relative College. She wrote Unpacky, the next day. I don't know if you read it, but it was interesting.
I'm waiting for the movie.
Yeah, and she spent about 30 minutes out of that 45 minutes talking about my skin color. And for me, it was the first time, I think it was the first time I ever really had that happen to me.
Well, right. I mean, where else do you have that conversation? It's the old cliche about ideas that are so stupid only an academic could believe them.
No, she said, no, if you came into my family, you're a nice, lucky guy. But if you came into my family, we are very white. I mean, like we're porcelain white. I mean, I'm paraphrasing pretty closely. And if you come in, but we would know that you met.
Yeah.
And then,
and then what would happen, right?
Yeah. I mean, she's obviously, what was also surprising was how, I hate to say this about people, but how lowbrow the materials were. I mean, I read the material, and it was, in my kid went to college and read the material, I would be upset because this is not even an academic standard. This is not material that uplift people, that expand the mind. This is material that teach people how to look at skin color and how to devalue and how to look at somebody else, look at me and say, okay, he's white skinned, but he's dead. So therefore, we're going to put him over here. And when you start looking at people like that, I probably the most striking thing about her was that she does not believe in the individual. She believes that white supremacy controlled everything so much. So if she does not believe in the individual, then how is she going to see me, or the boy in the south side of Chicago, or the kids in Nichols, which might be having her programmed in? How is she going to see them as individual? She sees them as color.
Now, I mean, so I scoff at this, and it's worthy of ridicule, but isn't it dangerous as well? Jordan Peterson, the University of Toronto psychology professor, says, if you think you're worried about what a strong person can do, you should be even more afraid of what a weak person can do.
Absolutely, and exactly. And how do you get this low brown material? And why do so many people believe in it? I mean, you talk about a list of privileges, Band-Aid. I mean, really? Go start a business, create a color Band-Aid. I mean, that's a solution. Well, it was just, I just know that my kids right now, They are children. They are full of promise. They are wanting to figure out how to conquer the world. Are so blessed to be in America. I show them pictures of children in Interior because I know how spoiled they are, and I want to, hey, you really need to understand what you have and be thankful. I tell them stories about, my grandfather in the Holocaust. I mean, even Mexico, we have everything.
Yeah, right.
And so to really give them that perspective, and we're trying to do that to give them the foundation that, yeah, you come from all these people who've suffered, who paid the price, who've lost family members, who couldn't fulfill their own promises, so that you can be here. And then let somebody like Peggy McIntosh come in and destroy all of that.
So you come from this kind of long line of deep thinkers and accomplished intellectuals. And I wonder what lessons you learned from your grandfather, your father's experience over the last 50, 70 years that informs how you approach filmmaking, how you approach being an outspoken person, because obviously people like Shelby Steele, like your father, and Walter Williams, and Bob Woodson, and Thomas Sowell, these were people that lived under Jim Crow. They know what they're talking about. They were part of the civil rights movement, but they're marginalized in the intellectual community because they're conservatives. And they're not given, and their work is not given the standing that I certainly think it deserves, at least as part of the conversation on college campuses, part of the scholarship on college campuses. So I wonder, after kind of watching what's happened to your father and some of his colleagues and contemporaries, how that informs how the approach that you take in this arena of public policy and persuasion.
Well, I was doing one thing, which is a little bit different, but one thing I learned from my grandfather, as you mentioned him a little bit earlier in the question, and my father was, about 6 years ago, Hollywood was like collapsed. There were movies for wars, all these remakes, there's no real job opportunities, nothing. So I'm thinking, man, I'm like almost, I'm probably like 36 at that time, and I'm thinking, oh, shit, man, what am I going to do? I'm like 20 years old, full of promise. I've got like one kid, and I don't know if she was born yet, but I guess she was born yet. I was like, what am I going to do? And I realized that my, my grandparents, my father, which was pretty beat down, and just start where you are, and then just move forward. And so that's why I went to the individual the answer, because the only person that got me out of my own bed was myself. And even my mother and father, when I started to do a documentary on multiracial, I had no idea. I had a gut feeling. And they said, what's that? They were questioning it because my father was more like black and white. Then finally, like 3 years later, after doing it, they finally got it. And then I showed them the undercover footage of the school. They were completely on board. But that's 4 years of me having to do all the labor. But that's what my Jewish grandfather did. That's what my black grandfather did. And so that's the spirit, and that's what I'm trying to give to Jack and June. That's where you come from. You can start from nothing. I started from nothing, but I started from a point where I had no film, nothing, and made a film out of it. And so I knew, going to the second part of the question, I knew that what I was doing would be different. And the way for me to make a peace with it was to stay as close to my truth as possible. This is my experience. That's why in the film there is no, it's mostly question. It's just mostly like, why are we doing this? Why are we going over there? It's not red meat at all. And I made that, that's why so far a lot of the screenings have been successful, and I've been able to reach a lot of people who are liberal but hate identity politics, and a lot of people who are conservative and hate identity politics. I've had them in this same crowd agreeing with each other. And that was my goal, because I wanted to create a benchmark. Hey, this is identity politics. See me interviewing these people and listen to how they talk and show it rather than just talk about it in the abstract.
And see what kind of answers you come up with to the questions you pose, right?
Yeah.
You're posing the right questions.
Exactly.
He is Eli Steele. He's a documentarian. The film is How Jack Became Black. You want to check it out, howjackbecameblack.com. and also, of course, as you heard, traveling around the country doing screenings as well. So maybe coming to a college campus or a library or a community center near you. Eli Steele, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Against the Current. Best of luck with the film. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me again.